Welcome to Omastruestories. The story you are about to listen to happened somewhere in Africa, Nigeria precisely. All names and locations have been changed to protect the identity of the real persons. I hope you learn a lot from it. Till then. See you afterwards. The sun was beginning to set over the small village, casting a warm golden light over the humble huts and fields. Inside one of these huts, a 17-year-old boy named Chud sat by his mother's bedside. Her breaths were shallow, her body frail and weak from illness, yet her eyes, though tired, held a fierce love for her son. "You must be strong, Chud," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Your future is bright, my son. Promise me you won't give up." Chud tried to hold back his tears as he nodded, gripping her hand tightly. His mother had always been his source of strength, and the thought of losing her was unbearable. But deep down, he knew the time was near. As the evening light filtered through the small window, casting long shadows on the walls, his mother's grip loosened, and a peaceful silence settled over the room. The days following her death were a blur for Chud. His father, once a proud and hardworking man, had become a shell of himself. The grief weighed heavily on him, and he withdrew into silence, leaving Chud to carry the burden of their survival. Chud dropped out of school and took on whatever work he could find, tilling the land, carrying goods at the market, anything that would put food on the table. As the days turned into weeks, Chud's life became a cycle of hard labor and quiet despair. His father rarely spoke, and the few times he did, it was in mumbled, distant words. Chud's once carefree life had been replaced by a heavy sense of responsibility. He worked in the fields under the scorching sun, his hands blistered and his body aching. In the evenings, he would return home to find his father sitting in the same spot, staring blankly at the floor. Each day was a struggle, but Chud refused to break. He held on to his mother's final words, repeating them in his mind whenever he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Your future is bright. Don't give up." It was the only thing that kept him going, the only thing that gave him hope in a life that seemed to offer nothing but hardship. The years had passed slowly, each one marked by the same routine of hard labor, scarce rewards, and the unchanging weight of responsibility on Chud's shoulders. His father remained silent, a man lost in his own grief and unable to offer any real guidance or support. Chud had grown stronger physically, but emotionally, he was at a breaking point. The village no longer felt like home, instead, it had become a prison, a place of lost dreams and endless toil. One evening, after another long day of work, Chud sat outside their small home, staring at the setting sun. The idea had been forming in his mind for months, but now it seemed like the only option. He couldn't stay here any longer. "Papa," Chud said, breaking the silence that had settled between them for years. "I'm going to the city." His father, sitting by the door, looked up slowly. "You want to leave?" his father finally asked, his voice rough with years of silence. "Leave me here alone." Chud felt a pang of guilt. But he knew he couldn't stay. "I'll send money. I'll come back." "I need to try, Papa." His father didn't argue, didn't try to stop him. Instead, he gave a slow nod and returned to staring at the ground. Chud felt his heart sink but knew there was no turning back. The village, with all its memories and pain, was no longer enough for him. The next day, with only a small bag of belongings, Chud left the village. As he walked away, he didn't look back, though he felt the weight of his father's gaze from the door of their small home. People whispered about whether he would survive the brutality of the city life. But Chud's determination was stronger than the whispers. The city greeted him with a harsh reality. He found himself living in a cramped slum, surrounded by thousands of others who had the same dreams of making it big. The jobs were few, and the pay was meager, but he kept at it, doing menial labor, cleaning cars, washing dishes, anything to save money for his ultimate goal, to travel to Europe. Getting a visa became his singular obsession. Each day, Chud worked long hours in the blistering heat, and every spare coin he earned was tucked away in a small, makeshift piggy bank in his cramped slum room. He lived on next to nothing, driven by the dream of a better life. But the path was never easy. The consulate doors seemed to mock him with every attempt. Each time he walked in with hope, he walked out with rejection, clutching a letter that told him once again he didn't meet the requirements. Still, Chud didn't give up. He worked even harder, saving more money, only to be rejected again. Some nights, he would lie on the floor of his tiny slum room, tears of frustration streaming down his face. But even in his darkest moments, he knew he couldn't give up. There was always a glimmer of hope in his heart, a small voice telling him to try one more time. There were days when Chud went without food, his body growing weaker, but his will remained unbroken. He continued to push himself through the backbreaking labor of the city, each day hoping for the day he'd be rewarded with that single piece of paper that would change his life forever. The dream of leaving for Europe was the only thing keeping him going, a flickering light in the darkness of his struggles. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of trying, Chud caught a break. His visa was approved. The news hit him like a wave of relief and disbelief. For years, he had fought against every hardship, and now, the opportunity he had been waiting for was finally in his hands. It was a moment that felt surreal, the culmination of all his years of struggle, sacrifice, and hope. Filled with excitement, Chud rushed back to his village to share the news with his father. The reunion was bittersweet. His father's eyes filled with pride and joy when Chud showed him the visa. But there was something else, something dark lurking behind his father's happiness. A deep, unspoken fear. Chud could sense it as his father's hands trembled slightly when he held the document. His father's voice, though warm, was tinged with caution.
"I'm proud of you, my son,"
Father said, but his eyes betrayed him. His father, now aged and worn by time, seemed haunted by the dangers he believed awaited Chud. The world beyond the village was filled with unknowns, evil forces, jealous people who might harm Chud or drag him down. These were the fears that had grown stronger in his father's mind with each passing year. Chud felt uneasy, knowing his father's joy was clouded by these worries. Being a deeply traditional man, Chud's father insisted on taking him to see a native doctor for protection. Chud resisted at first, not fully believing in the old ways, but his father's desperation swayed him. Together, they visited a well-known native doctor in a remote part of the village, a man who was said to wield powerful magic. The journey to the remote shrine was long and filled with tension. Chud and his father walked in silence, the weight of what was to come hanging over them. When they arrived, the native doctor greeted them with a knowing look, as if he had been expecting them all along. The shrine was small, surrounded by trees, and filled with strange objects, animal skins, charms, and symbols that Chud did not understand. The native doctor wasted no time. He led them inside the shrine, where the air felt thick with a strange energy. Chud's father bowed respectfully, his frail body trembling slightly as he greeted the doctor. Chud, feeling out of place, followed his father's lead, though his heart pounded with uncertainty. The rituals began. They were strange and terrifying to Chud. He had to drink concoctions that tasted like earth and ash. The native doctor chanted incantations and marked Chud's body with strange symbols. Finally, the doctor said there was one last ritual to complete the process of protection. Chud had to be buried alive for 1 hour. His father, though hesitant, was convinced it was the only way to ensure his son's safety abroad. Despite his fear, Chud agreed. The grave was dug, narrow and shallow. The villagers, curious about the ritual, gathered around the shrine in the forest. Chud was laid into the ground, and the soil was shoveled over him. His heartbeat pounded in his chest as the weight of the earth pressed down on him. He was to be dug up after 1 hour, the doctor assured them, fully fortified and invincible. But something went terribly wrong. The minutes dragged by, and the air around the shrine grew heavy with a sense of foreboding. Chu's father, who had tried to hold on to hope, began to feel a rising panic as the hours stretched on. The native doctor's face grew tight with tension, his confident air beginning to crack. Whispers spread through the crowd as doubt turned into fear, and what had begun as a ritual of protection was slowly becoming a tragedy. The village erupted in chaos. The news of Chu's death spread like wildfire, and soon the air was thick with shouts of anger and disbelief. Chu's father, overwhelmed with grief and madness, raged uncontrollably. His cries echoed through the village as he cursed the native doctor, the rituals, and himself for allowing such madness to unfold. His frail body shook with fury and sorrow, his once stoic figure now broken by the weight of what had happened. The villagers, driven by fear and anger, stormed the shrine with torches in hand. The flames consumed the structure, crackling and roaring as the shrine, once a symbol of power, turned to ash. The villagers watched as the fire climbed higher, lighting up the darkened sky. Their faces were a mix of rage and horror as they realized the depth of the tragedy that had unfolded before them. In the heat of the chaos, they turned on Chu's father. His grief and guilt were not enough to save him from their fury. The villagers dragged him to the local authorities, accusing him of killing his own son in the name of superstition. His cries for forgiveness fell on deaf ears as he was taken away, his frail body trembling under the weight of the accusations. In the aftermath, the village was left in mourning. The once hopeful atmosphere that had surrounded Chu's departure to the city was now replaced by sorrow and regret. His death became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of holding on to old traditions while reaching for modern dreams. The villagers whispered about him in hushed tones, his story forever etched in their memories as a tragic reminder of a life full of potential, cut short by superstition. Chu's lifeless body was taken to the mortuary, a tragic end to a life filled with dreams of a better future. His father, broken and inconsolable, was handed over to the police 2 days later, charged with his son's death in the name of superstition. The once tight-knit village, shaken by the tragedy, fell into quiet mourning. Chu's passing left a void that could not be filled, his untimely death becoming a symbol of the dangers of holding on to old beliefs while striving for modern success. Phew! What a story, my dears! The tragic fate of Chu serves as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between tradition and progress. While cultural beliefs can provide a sense of identity and security, blind adherence to these practices in the face of change can lead to devastating consequences. Chu's story teaches us the importance of questioning traditions that may no longer serve us and being cautious of the forces, both seen and unseen, that can influence our lives. His dreams, filled with hope and ambition, were ultimately destroyed by a failure to adapt, leaving behind a cautionary tale for future generations. Thanks for watching Omastruestories. Please come back for more interesting true life stories, but before then, kindly subscribe to our channel, comment, like and share. Love you all. Mwah.